Welcome back. Another night, me sat at home. I've got a shirt on twice this week. When Mayor of Liverpool, Joe Anderson, calls, you answer and you get live on Zoom. We're going to have another discussion. We had one on Tuesday and we had over 6,000 of you watching at home. It was really interesting. Loads and loads of questions answered. Loads still remain unanswered. So we wanted to kind of revisit this tonight, but focus on one subject only. And that subject has got to be something at the forefront of everyone's minds right now in Liverpool. Of course, we entered this next tier 3 of local lockdown. Government enforced this on Monday. We entered it Wednesday morning at 1 minute past midnight. And one of the things that had to close were gyms. So a big reaction on social media from gym owners, fitness experts, and gym users. And people like me who haven't been to a gym for ages and ages, but just can't understand the concept and the science behind why closing gyms is a good idea. Joe, we'll start with you. We'll bring you straight in. We've got some great guests lined up as well tonight. Councillor Paul Brandt from Liverpool City Council. We've got the likes of Molly McCann, Meatball Molly, chatting to us very soon. But first off, Joe, just explain again, in your head, why did they close gyms?
Yeah, it's important for everybody to understand this, Jay, I think, because we got called to a meeting, to attend a meeting with government because government wanted to talk to us about what they said was the virus spreading uncontrollable in Liverpool and the concerns that they had because of Public Health England, because of our National Health Service, our clinical commissioning groups. All of the medical experts were telling them that the city's hospitals were being overwhelmed as the virus was increasing. And at the time, last week, when we entered into that discussion with them about the tier 3 measures, there were 3,300 cases of COVID-19. It spread from 700 cases in the previous week, so it was doubling every 7 days. There was 30 deaths as of Friday. There's more to be added on this week, so things were pretty bad. And the government asked us to speak to them on Friday. So Friday evening, around about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we entered into a discussion with them to be told that whether we liked it or whether we didn't, the government was taking control of the situation to reduce the virus spreading within the city. And they were introducing, previous to that, about a week before or 2 weeks ago, people had started to hear this conversation about the new structures that the government would introduce, called the tier structures. And it was leaked in the Times that Liverpool was going to be put in tier 3, probably about a week ago today or whatever. So our conversation with them was around that, to be told this is what we're doing. So with that, of course, we said, well, what are the tier 3 measures? What is it you want to do? And we asked them to see scientific evidence and all of the data and stuff so we could judge ourselves. So we were shown some graphs and slides, which, to be frank, were crap, not very good, didn't give us a lot of information. And then we started then to be told exactly what it is that's going to happen. And we were told that the hospitality sector was going to be hit to target movement of people and suppress the virus. So we asked, well, what do you mean the hospitality sector? So we were told pubs were going to close. We were told restaurants were going to close, not just stay open until 10 o'clock, but close. We were told gymnasiums were going to close, bookmakers were going to close, casinos were going to close. And I think I've covered what we were told at that time, that they were going to close. There was even talk then that they were going to stop movement around the city region, stop people moving around the city. That's what we were told were going to happen. So then we started to ask them questions around that. I remember distinctly, and I'm verbatim. And please, if anyone out there wants to film me or quote me, the guy who led the debate, the discussion on behalf of government, was a guy called Ed Lister. And I said to him, what is the reason, for instance, because we're talking specifically about gyms, so I'm not going to go into anything else at the minute. But I said, why are you picking on the hospitality sector? And I'll come back to the gyms in a minute. I said, why are you picking on the hospitality sector? I said, for me, schools, universities, higher education are big spreaders of the virus. So his response to me, and I quote him verbatim, his response to me was, 25% of the virus is spread in higher education and in schools and in universities. 25% of it is spread in retail and in shops and people going to shops. 25% is spread around the community and just people mixing. And the other 25% is through the hospitality sector. He said, we're not closing schools, universities, or any of the higher education institutions. We're not going to target retail either. So the only place we've got to hit, I repeat, the only place we've got to hit is the hospitality sector. That's what he said. So then we started expanding on that about what he meant by the hospitality sector. When it comes to gyms, I said, gyms are probably one of those safest places in the city. I said, you know, anecdotally, I said, somebody said to me, they came out of a gym and went into the local supermarket and they felt more safer in the gym because in the supermarket, people were walking around mixing with no masks on. I said, so they felt safer in the gymnasium, inside the gym. I said,
so let's bring Molly straight into this, just with what you're saying there, because she'll know this firsthand, you know, having been in gyms probably every day for the past 10 years. Molly McCann, mixed martial arts champion of Liverpool. How are we?
All right, boss. How are you?
Good to see you. Obviously a really difficult week for you. Just what Joe was saying there about gyms being safe. You know this firsthand. They are safe and they have been COVID secure, haven't they?
Yep. So I remember post-lockdown, we had to go through so many rules and regulations to be able to open and to let people in. And especially in my gym, it's like you walk in, you get your temperature checked, you've got to do track and trace, you have to sanitize, you can only train with people in your bubble, you've got to be out of the gym by a certain time and it's the next new lot coming in. And being an elite athlete, this is really hard. Like, it's really hard to do a fight camp in this kind of time, but we're doing the best to make it work. Do you know what I mean?
What's your question tonight for Joe? What would you like to ask Joe? Obviously, you've seen social media. Joe's had a bit of stick. Liverpool City Council have had some stick. People think it's their decision. You know, what's the reaction you've seen to social? And what would you like to say to Joe?
So everyone who isn't in the know and watches the news and sees social media believes it was up to our local council why the gyms were shut. The general, what did they say? They didn't have to shut. So, Joe, you've decided to shut our gyms. And I was even saying, I direct messaged Joe to say, Joe, I'm not going to be able to train for my upcoming fight. And me and Joe have got a lot of respect for me. He always messages me before a fight and wishes me good luck and stuff. And I was just like, how is this going to happen? Because a gym's a safe place for people who are going to train, for their mental health, for kids coming off the street, for not being in vulnerable situations. Like, our city's very impoverished and you've got kids who are now stuck in a house, who can't be around other people, who could be getting hurt when they could just be at the gym being safe. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got someone like myself who at this moment isn't able to train with my teammates, and I'm having to go to Belfast tomorrow to go and train for my fight camp. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a daughter of the city isn't able to train and our gym's going to probably have to be shut down. And it's like, oh no, but the youth can still train and the elite level, but then we haven't got the jurisdiction by a national governing body to say, no, actually you can train. Do you know what I mean? And then I know kids who went into the MMA academy yesterday to train and the police went in, pulled them out, no, you shut down, when it's being said kids are allowed to train. So it's a lot of mixed communication and no one feels safe. I was on the phone to my coach today saying, can we train? He's like, do you know what I mean? Like, no one wants these fines. No one wants to get a bad rep for the gym. Everyone's trying to do what they can to stay safe for the community and for where we are. But it is that thing, isn't it? Like, there's been so little, what did they say? Something like 30, how many million people have been in the gym? And there's been something like 78 cases reported in the UK of COVID. So I'm just really struggling.
Which is actually lower. It's 0.34 cases of COVID for every 100,000 gym visits, which is incredible, isn't it? So not big numbers at all. Molly, you mentioned mental health then. We got a question for Joe, and we'll let Joe just respond to what you've got to say before we give this audience question. Joe, what would you like to say to Molly?
Well, look, I mean, we'll look, Molly, we'll work with you and we'll see what the team can do in terms of, because we know as I said, in terms of your training and stuff, we want to see what we can do to support that. But the guidance is really clear. It is about working with disabled groups. It is about working with school children, allowing them to use, for instance, the swimming parts of our gymnasiums in terms of our leisure centres and stuff. So, you know, we'll work with you, we'll talk to you, we'll have a look at what it is we can do to support you. But I just, Jay, come back to this point, though, this central point about those points that Molly made, and I'm sure there are many other people, gym owners who are tuning in, and also gym users. You know, the reality is I put all of those points, as did others, by the way, not just me, Steve Rotherham did, and other leaders. We talked about the mental health and well-being, the physical wealth and well-being, and the fact that all of those things that you've just mentioned, you're changed before you go in the gym, that the gyms are disinfectants around the equipment that you've used, you're in your bubble, you're socially distanced, all of those things. And yes, you are more, in my view, likely to pick up a virus in the likes of the supermarkets, and certainly in higher education. But it didn't matter what we said, didn't matter what we argued, it didn't matter about those points that we were going to do. They were determined to put it in the legislation. So those cities that go into tier 3 will have all that legislation. So if Manchester, Newcastle, Sheffield, Nottingham or others, and there will be more over the next few days, get placed in tier 3, they've all got to follow that guidance and that guidelines that's in there, including the closure of gyms. Now, you know, from my point of view, you know, I want us to be in and out of this as quick as we can. I know the damage that it's going to cause. I know the damage that's going to cause businesses outside of, you know, the gyms. We've got to get in and out of this as quick as we can. What worries me is that in 3 weeks, 4 weeks' time, we've still got the levels that we've got, as high as that we've got, and we're not going to be able to come out of this and push us into another month. So we've got to work together to bring the virus down. And also, you know, the fact of the matter is that we've got to work together to bring the virus down so that stops our hospitals next week becoming overloaded with cases.
Okay, Joe, we've got some questions which we're going to put straight to Paul, actually. Councillor Paul Brandt, you work with the public health teams within Liverpool. We've seen you on the news the past couple of days. You've been busy. Lots and lots of questions about mental health, first off. This is going to have such an impact on people's mental health. I've got a friend, for instance, and the past 6 months, the gym has been vital to kind of lift him. He lost his job early on in lockdown, and this has got him through. I've seen him dip this week. You know, Claire Robson's got a question on Facebook, as has Sandra Harrison. What about anxiety, depression, and mental health problems due to gyms closing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to raise the question about mental health generally. It's a huge concern of the public health team because, understandably, the fact that we're heading in towards a long, bleak winter is making everyone feel really down. And one of the ways, it's not the only way, but one of the ways that a lot of people use to keep their mental health buzzing, and I'm one of them, is to go to the gym. And we're conscious that the ability to exercise is really key to a lot of people, both maintaining physical fitness and also good mental health. As Joe has said, we've been fairly clear as a council that this was not our recommendation. And indeed, those of you who've been following the news today will see that the government have tried to do exactly the same thing to Greater Manchester and to other areas of the country, which effectively imposing a top-down solution into or a top-down policy program on local communities. Without in any way trying to justify what they're doing, it might help to explain part of the background, because for some bizarre reason, the government don't seem to have tried to have a remote attempt to try and explain to people why they're doing some of this stuff. As Joe mentioned earlier on, Liverpool here, we are experiencing really difficult amounts of stress on our NHS. Our ICU levels of occupation are already over 90%, and our hospital is likely to exceed the peak of COVID patients probably in the next week, or possibly a bit less, the way that it's going up at the moment. And government decided that rather than following sage advice for a short, sharp shock a couple of weeks ago, that they're trying to introduce this tier 3 measure, and within it they've decided they want to try and reduce social contact by 60%, but they're ruling out any reduction in terms of educational sector or retail sector. So that means that they've ended up closing down a whole series of activities which are arguably lower risk and lower transmission vectors than some of the other activities that they've decided to allow to continue. Now, you can understand, there are arguments in favour of keeping educational venues going, and there are arguments in favour of keeping retail going. Those are ultimately policy choices. They weren't made by us, but we're in a situation where the government went because they've excluded those, and because they want to reduce social contact by the amount that I've said, 60%, they are going very far down the list of activities that are lower grade risk. Now, I'm not seeking to justify it, but I think it's important that people understand what's going on, because otherwise the whole thing seems completely incomprehensible and totally irrational.
It certainly does. Paul, today it was announced Liverpool Lifestyle Centres, which a city council ran and owned. They're introducing kids swimming lessons again, and some kids fitness sessions, which is great news. Also sessions for disabled people. Why can those sessions go ahead and others can't, and kids swimming across the city too?
I was going to try and screen share with you, but I think at the moment the default setting, I think Niles, the host, is that all participants apart from the host are prevented from screen sharing, because I was going to show you the regs. I've just tweeted them out on my Twitter feed for those of you who are Twitterers. For those of you who aren't, don't do it. You'll never get your life back again. But you can find the regs on there. And putting it very simply, the regulations prohibit indoor gyms, but they don't prohibit swimming. So consequently, activity that's prohibited is prohibited, and it's a criminal offence. And
so
activities
swimming pools can be open then right now?
Well, I don't think indoor swimming is banned. I think indoor
for schools
gyms are.
In particular, for children, for schools.
Joe, I'll let you pick that up just on lifestyles. So swimming pools can open. Obviously, lifestyles, that was great news today about those sessions.
Yeah, my understanding, Jay, on that is that it's for specific targeted groups and for school children as part of theirs. Now again, as Paul said, this has been drip fed to us from as the orders have been passed in Parliament, and we're still trying to decipher it and clarify many things. But my understanding is, because that was the point, we never got told that exactly everything that was going to be in the orders that got passed through Parliament. So my understanding is that it's for school children and groups like disabled groups and specific targeted groups that it's open. It's not open for the general public. But we'll check with that and make it clear tomorrow exactly what it is, what the rules are.
Brilliant. And again, fantastic that those sessions are commencing once again. We're going to bring in our next guest. Now, you might have heard about Empowered Fit on Wirral. Just a couple of nights ago, they launched a big Facebook campaign. They said they were going to stay open. We're going to speak to Chris Ellaby Hemmings. Chris, are you there? Have we got Chris?
Hey, thanks, guys. So I'm Chris. Obviously, I own half of the gym. Thea owns the other half of the gym. I think Thea's going to ask the question or chat, if that's okay.
So first of all, hi Joe, and obviously we've communicated a lot with a lot of local MPs, and people like yourself who are saying you had no choice in it. So we don't blame you, but we're just here to obviously open some dialogue. So what we want to ask you is to sort of stand up for your people. So we're on the Wirral where the rates are extremely low compared to Liverpool. The scientific evidence is there in our favour, so we're asking if you will be our voice, so to speak, and stand up, because we are the safest sector, and the transmission rate will only drop, predicted by SAGE, by 0.1 by closing us, so we're not even having a positive impact by being closed. So I'm just asking if you'll stand up for us, but also open a dialogue with us so we can sort of move as Merseyside together, because we're currently basically being isolated as a region, in my opinion.
Absolutely, good question. And I heard your colleague getting interviewed there today, I think, on one of the news channels, and absolutely brilliant interview, and you articulated the case just as good as anybody I've heard. I'll continue to do that, and I've done that. I signed a petition, I tweeted the petition, I've give out the facts about what I argued, because I know what you're saying is correct. This government are making policy and decisions. Look, there's more COVID in our schools There's more COVID in our teaching staff and our pupils in schools than there is in gyms. Let's be absolutely clear. And they've made the political decision, as Paul just said, because they're saying we want to reduce transmission or we want to reduce contact by 60% to target the hospitality sector without the full financial package. We argued for full financial package, but let's be clear. You don't need a financial package. You just need to be able to carry on and follow the rules and invest what you've done. We run lifestyle gyms in Liverpool. You know we do. We invested heavily in making our gyms COVID safe. Why would I want to be closing them? And let me be fairer than that and absolutely clear. Do you actually think that I'd kowtow to a Tory government and support a Tory government? Absolute nonsense. I've fought against them all my life. So I will continue to argue that you are allowed to open as quick as possible. In fact, now, and I will argue that it's reviewed and people listen to what's being said. I believe gyms are safe. I believe that they are as safe as supermarkets.
Can we open a dialogue outside of this, just because of the momentum we've got, in a polite way?
More than happy. I'll get Tris, who works for me in my office. I think he's on the line. I'm more than happy to meet with you to look at what we can do. I've got access to speak to people, and I promise you we'll continue to make the case. Do you know why I'll do it on a daily basis? Let me say this to you, because I know there's thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who've signed a petition. I think it's over 100,000. And I know I get a load of abuse on the media. I'm not doing it because of any of that. I'm doing it because I argued not to do it last week, and I'll argue not to do it this week because it's the right thing to do. Gymnasiums are just as safe as any other. Why aren't we shutting down shops or supermarkets? There's more transmissions coming through shops and supermarkets than there are gyms. Why aren't we shutting them down? The reason why, because you're an easy target. And we've made that case and we've argued that case, and I promise you I'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Joe.
But we'll talk tomorrow. We'll look at how we have that communication and stuff tomorrow, okay?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Fiona.
We've got 10 gyms in the city that we want open. Okay.
Joe, is there anything you can do? We've had a couple of questions on. Lindsay Owens has been on. Can you overturn this ruling? Can you force their hand and say, no, Jay, it's not happening?
Simply, we can't. It's the law. Legislation's being passed. And if Greater Manchester get put in Tier 3 tonight or tomorrow or whenever, and Newcastle, we know they're having discussions with them, Sheffield, we know they're having discussions, Nottingham. When you are placed in Tier 3, there's a suite of things that has to be done, and this is one of them. That's what I said to you. I tried to be honest and describe what happened on Friday when we were told. And every single day we asked for more money to support the businesses, whoever they were, whether they were the pubs or whether they were, the casinos, the bookmakers or the gyms. But we also put forward really, really strong, passionate, articulate, but also very, backed by science, backed by evidence to say there was more COVID spread in schools, more COVID spread in shops. Why are you attacking the gyms? We did that.
We're going to bring in our final guest from So Health, Saeed Ole Iwola. Big presence in the city for many years and focuses on well-being and fitness and health. Saeed, how are you?
How you doing, Jay? How you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, good to see you. Just first off, mate, let's get straight in with a question for Joe. What's your question for the Mayor?
I think quite a lot of the stuff has been covered already. Mine is coming from the angle of mental health and well-being. I'm just going to read a couple of stuff so I can... so that it comes straight, direct, properly. Just going on, public government reports a significant increase in mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety across our population and so on. I think I've gone there.
There you go.
Okay, man. We can hear you.
Technology, across our population and so on. And they said the numbers are growing up in low socioeconomic areas, of which we know Merseyside is one of those low socioeconomic areas. We know that physical movement and human connectivity, obviously bearing in mind social distancing is maintained and so on, significantly reduces the impact and incidence of mental health challenges and so on. Now, Joe, you've talked a lot about being on our side and wanting to support us and wanting to get things overturned and changed. The direct question is, what are you going to do? Because as our local representative to Westminster, you have a direct line, as you said. What actions are you going to be taking directly, specifically, from this conversation? And also, how can we as a community in Liverpool support you? Because the reality is people have been working from their four walls for the past 6 months. And when they come out of the lockdown, the one thing that a lot of people have said has helped them a lot for their mental health and well-being is going to the gym, it's going to the local health centres. That's what's helped a lot of people. Closing that now, a lot of people are fearing for their mental health. What are you going to do specifically from today, from now, to support us, and how can we support you in that?
Well, I'm going to continue to make the case as strong as I can at every opportunity, whether it's on the television, on the radio. We've got an MP meeting tomorrow with all the MPs, the Liverpool MPs. I think we've got over 100,000 people signed the petition, so there will have to be a debate in Parliament. I'll get the MPs to lobby the Health Minister and other people in terms of Sports Minister to argue that gyms should be allowed, providing they are COVID safe, and they are, because we've checked and tested them all in Liverpool, and they are COVID safe, that they should be allowed to stay open, because the mental health and the physical health outweighs the risk of COVID being spread. So we'll continue to argue those facts, those common sense facts that we know exist, and we'll use all of the opportunities that we've got to highlight that. What I can't do is tell people to break the law. What I can say to people loud and clear is that we're only going to get this changed, and we're only going to get out of tier 3 by working together, sticking together, staying together. And for those that need the support in terms of because they've got mental health issues and they rely on the gym, let's help them. Let's meet them in the park. Let's go for a run with them. Let's go to some of the outdoor gyms that are in some of our parks. Let's work with them to try and help them overcome the next couple of weeks that we've got. But in the meantime, we'll keep fighting and keep battling to bring it to the attention of government that we think they've made the wrong decision.
Joe, can I just say, you say it's legislation. We know legislation can be amended. We know it can be amended, it can be overturned. And it's cold outside at the moment, Joe. Would you go outside at the moment and start doing exercise and moving and stuff like that? That's the reality of the conversation we're having here. People have been stuck in their four walls. It's not enough, Joe. In my opinion, and I'm not here to bash in any way, shape, or form, I'm being completely honest here. I think our local authority, for what we elect you guys to do for us, you need to do a hell of a lot more. If you believe in what we're doing and what we're saying, stand by it and do a hell of a lot more. Ask Westminster to change things for us, for all of us in Merseyside. Thank you very much, Joe.
Well, I appreciate, especially your passion about that, and I will continue to argue. I, love the passion of people in this city. That's why I'm proud to be the mayor of one of the most passionate cities in the country, because we are committed to fighting for justice and fighting for what's right, and we'll continue to fight and argue for that. And I know, in terms of the physical and mental health, that, there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on me, and I've been doing the couch to 5K. So I was out this morning running for the first time for 30 minutes for the last 30 years, and I've been on my bike and I'm doing all those things. So I am going out in the cold. I'm not saying anybody who doesn't want to do that shouldn't, but what I'm saying is we can get through this. I'm going to work as hard as we can to get us through this particular patch and get us out of tier 3 as fast as we can. And during this time, and in the meantime, I'll continue to make that case, use our MPs, work with our MPs, and argue the case that gyms should be allowed to be open for people to use and for them to be, supported and helped as businesses as well, because they're an important part of the community. I don't think we're separated by a cigarette paper on that. I think we fully agree. It's what we've got to do to try and get government to understand that.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Thank you, Saeed, as well. Check out So Health. Lots and lots of information out there on what Saeed does day to day. Joe, just to round things off, what's the next step, and when we will find out more information from the government? How does it work in terms of getting our gyms back open again? What will they do to decide on that?
Well, currently, Jay, as it stands, we've been put in tier 3 for a month, and it's reviewed after a month. Now, they haven't even told us what is the data or the information that they're going to compare us against to see if it'll actually drop you know, in other words, we go into tier 2. So we haven't been given that information, so there's no transparent information. So what we've got to do is try and be able to argue the admission rates into our hospitals come down, the infection rates have come down, the R rates have come down, so that in a month's time, we go back into tier 2. But what I've just promised to do is meet people again, possibly tomorrow or over the weekend. More than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to have another Zoom conference next week. So if we've got some things that we've coordinated tomorrow and planned to lobby and to work with our MPs and to do things, that we can do it together sort of sometime next week, to meet up next Wednesday, next Thursday, to have another one of these meetings, to plan and work together to see what we can do. I think that's the only thing, because as Paul rightly said before, and I've tried to repeat, you know, the situation is whether we like it or whether we don't. The government passed this law, tier 3 law, that we find ourselves in on Wednesday.
Okay, listen, Joe, thank you. Let's do that. Let's catch up again next week. This is an ever-changing situation with so many different things happening every single day, just to blow our minds even more.
That's why I wanted to have the conversation tonight, you know, to talk to people. And so it's a dialogue. And so next week, we'll have conversations tomorrow. We can see if we can arrange, you know, a dozen or half a dozen people, whatever, to talk. But we will come back next week and try and talk again.
Okay. Brilliant. Mayor of Liverpool, Joe Anderson, thank you so much. Listen, still lots of questions to be answered. The debate continues. I'm sure you've got your own opinion, but hopefully the past 30 minutes have helped just ever so slightly. Continue the debate on Facebook, on Twitter. You can continue as well to ask questions through this Zoom. If you missed any, we're going to put the full video, the full 30 minutes, the full discussion on theguideliverpool.com and also on Liverpool Express from tomorrow morning. Thanks to all our guests, to Saeed, to Chris and Fiona from Empowered Fit, Molly Meatball McCann, it was great to see her, Councillor Paul Brandt, and of course, Mayor of Liverpool. Take care, and we'll speak to you very soon. Thank you.